I was in a strange place that night, as if everything around me had slowed down, and I could see my life unfolding from a distance. It was a Wednesday, and I sat at the kitchen table, nursing my second cup of stale coffee, pretending to go through real estate listings for a client. In truth, I couldn't care less. My wife, Vanessa, was upstairs getting ready for a dinner with her team. Or so she said. I could hear the sharp, deliberate click of her heels on the hardwood floor. 9 years of marriage, and I thought I knew every little thing about her. The wine she liked, how she wanted her back rubbed after a stressful day, the spot on her left shoulder blade that always tensed up when she was under pressure. I thought I knew the woman who still kissed my cheek before every shift at the firehouse. But I didn't. Not that night. I heard her voice from upstairs, and it sounded a little off. Then my phone rang. A private number. Normally I wouldn't have answered, but something about this one made me pick up. The man on the other end introduced himself as Marcus W.N. He claimed to work with Vanessa and told me he needed to meet with me. I was skeptical, but he insisted. He said it was about my wife, and that there was something I needed to know. He mentioned another man and a plan she had for Friday night. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But when he said it wasn't a surprise party, my stomach dropped. He gave me a time and a place to meet him, Monarch Cafe, noon the next day. My thoughts were racing. I had to know more, but I didn't want to face the truth. Vanessa came home later that night. It was around 11:15 p.m., and she didn't smell like wine or food. Her scent was different. Expensive cologne, not mine. Her lipstick was freshly applied, and her hair looked too perfect for someone who had just been at a work dinner. "You still awake?" she asked softly. I nodded, pretending to be absorbed in my thoughts. She leaned down and kissed my forehead, telling me I worried too much. But something in her demeanor had shifted. We'd never gone to bed without each other. That night, it was as if she was a stranger. The next day, I arrived at Monarch Cafe, my heart pounding. Marcus was easy to spot, a well-dressed man whose eyes had a certain heaviness to them. He slid a manila envelope toward me and told me Vanessa had been seeing a man named Drew Callahan, a colleague from her firm. They had been meeting in secret for months. The worst part? They had plans for Friday night, a hotel room at the Alderwood Suites. He told me his story. His wife had done the same thing 3 years ago. He had ignored the signs and paid the price. Now, he was alone, and Drew was with her. Marcus said he didn't want anyone else to make the same mistake. I was in shock, but I didn't ask for sympathy. I wanted answers. Proof. Marcus pointed to the envelope. It contained photos, text messages, and even the hotel reservation. Vanessa had booked it herself. I don't remember driving home. I just sat in the car for an hour, staring at the envelope. I thought about throwing it away, pretending I hadn't seen it, but I knew I couldn't. That night, after Vanessa fell asleep, I opened the envelope. The first photo was of her in the blue dress I bought her for our anniversary, laughing with Drew. Another photo showed them leaving a wine bar, his hand on her back. There were also texts, one from Vanessa, saying she couldn't wait to have Drew all to herself that Friday. Something inside me broke. Not just my trust, but something deeper. Yet I didn't cry. Instead, a cold, burning anger replaced the pain. If she thought I'd sit by quietly, she had no idea who she was dealing with. I spent the rest of the night planning. The next morning, I got up early and made her breakfast. Eggs, toast, and coffee, just like she liked it. When she came downstairs, she seemed completely unaware, cheerful, and relaxed. She kissed me on the cheek and told me I was sweet. But the name Drew burned in my throat. After she left for work, I made a call to an old friend, Corey Nash, a retired detective. I needed someone discreet, someone good with surveillance. He didn't ask questions. Within an hour, I was sitting in Cameron Rear's office, a private investigator. I hired him without hesitation, knowing that the truth would come at a cost. By 3 p.m., Cameron's team was already tailing Vanessa. By 6 p.m., they had footage of her and Drew together, just as Marcus had said. Friday was fast approaching, and I had no intention of letting her continue with her betrayal. That night, Vanessa came home smelling of wine and citrus, just like she had the night before. I was in the garage, gathering my thoughts. She entered the house as if everything was normal, as if nothing had changed. I was wiping down the hood of my truck when she stepped in, smiling. "You're out here late," she said. "Just needed some air." She leaned against the door frame, twirling a strand of her hair. "You've been quiet lately? Everything okay?" I nodded. "Everything's perfect." She walked over, ran her fingers down my arm. "You sure?" she asked. I looked at her directly in the eyes. "Absolutely." I let her kiss me, let her touch me, let her feel safe because I knew the calm before the storm was the safest place. Thursday arrived too quickly. Vanessa was in a great mood in the morning, practically floating around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. She wore that powder blue blouse I had gotten her last Christmas and paired it with heels I hadn't seen in months. Her perfume hit me differently that day, sweet but sharp. She called it her feel-good outfit. I saw it for what it really was, her cheating uniform. She sat across from me, nibbling on toast, scrolling through her phone, sipping her coffee. "Big plans for the weekend?" I asked casually. She didn't even look up. "Not really. Might catch up on work, maybe visit my mom if I can find the time." Liar. That lie didn't just hurt, it ignited a cold fire inside me. But I didn't show it. I just smiled and nodded, playing the part of the clueless husband. Because by Friday night, she would walk into that hotel room thinking she was in control, and I would already be 5 steps ahead. That afternoon, I met Cameron again. He handed me a flash drive. "This has footage from yesterday and today. She's meeting him again tonight at 7 o'clock, same bar, same routine, room still reserved." I asked, "Confirmed?" He nodded. "Alderwood Suites, room 512. Reservations under his name. She's using her corporate card for incidentals." I nearly laughed. She was billing our marriage for her affair. "You want me to wire the room for audio too?" Cameron asked. "No," I said. "She won't need it." Cameron raised an eyebrow. "You calling it off?" I shook my head slowly. "No, she's back at home." I waited for her to return. She was late, of course. She came in around 10:15, heels in hand, her hair slightly tousled and her cheeks too flushed for someone who claimed to have been out with coworkers. "Hey," she said, in that fake lazy voice. "Sorry, had a long meeting followed by drinks. You okay?" "Just tired," I replied. "You hungry?" "No, we had appetizers." She kissed my cheek and walked off like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't carrying someone else's cologne on her dress. Friday morning came with a punch. She was already dressed before I even got out of bed. "Early start?" I asked, yawning. "Yeah," she said, barely glancing at me. "Lots to do before the weekend." I watched her through the window, packing a small overnight bag into her car's trunk. It hit me then. She was really going through with it. I called my divorce attorney that afternoon and told her to have the papers ready, but to hold off on serving them until I gave the word. It was going to be unforgettable. By 6:30 p.m., Vanessa was gone. She left the house in a red dress I hadn't seen in years, the same one she wore on our honeymoon night. I watched from the window as Drew's sleek black sedan pulled up. She didn't hesitate. She strutted out, heels clicking on the pavement like gunshots, tossed her overnight bag in the back seat, and slid into the passenger side like she was entering paradise. I didn't blink. I didn't rage. I just knew her paradise was about to turn into her reckoning. Cameron's team was already inside Alderwood Suites. They had cameras in room 512, GPS tracking Drew's car, and audio equipment picking up everything between them. At 7:12 p.m., They checked in. At 7:19, they entered the room. By 7:26, Vanessa was sitting on the edge of the bed, champagne in hand. Drew was behind her, kissing her neck. At exactly 7:33, the screen on the TV in their room flickered on. My face appeared, pre-recorded and calm. "Hope you're enjoying the champagne, Vanessa and Drew. Nice to finally meet the man who thought he could take what's mine. But let me be clear, you didn't take anything. She gave it away. But here's what neither of you expected." Vanessa dropped her glass. Drew stepped back, confused. "You thought I'd cry, beg, break?" I continued. "Nah. I just made sure you'll never forget tonight. Check the nightstand." Inside the drawer lay a bulky envelope. With trembling hands, she tore it open to reveal divorce documents, a record of every falsehood, every rendezvous, every text and picture, all meticulously listed. At the end, there was a receipt for the transfer confirming that I had sold our home that very morning. The house she once believed she'd returned to was now gone. By noon, I had already arranged for a new lock on the door. Every one of her possessions was neatly boxed up and stored, the storage fee paid through the following month. Soon after, her car was auctioned off, and she lost access to our joint bank accounts. In fact, her personal funds were so depleted that she couldn't even afford an Uber ride home. The next morning, around 10 a.m., Vanessa returned to the house, likely thinking she could still salvage the situation. Clutching her suitcase, her face swollen from crying, she rang the doorbell. I only opened the door slightly, locked eyes with her, and told her, "You made your decision last night." I added that it wasn't about whether I wanted the divorce or not. It was about her showing up untruthfully when she claimed to be ready. All that mattered was that she had lied. Tears streamed down her face as she pleaded, "Please, just talk to me." For a brief moment, she assumed I might let her in. But then Melissa, her younger sister, emerged from behind me and draped an arm around my shoulder. Vanessa's eyes widened in shock when I said, "Remember Melissa? She's been supporting me through all this." Vanessa could barely speak before gasping, "You're sleeping with my sister?" Melissa coolly replied that healing happens in mysterious ways. Vanessa let out a raw cry, dropped her suitcase, and ran away. In the ensuing months, as Vanessa fought the divorce, she was utterly defeated. The mountain of evidence against her was insurmountable. Even her lawyer abandoned her mid-hearing when I played the recording from room 512. In the end, she ended up with nothing. No alimony, no home, no car, and not a shred of sympathy. As for me, I rebuilt my life. I devoted myself to my work and sought inner peace. And yes, Melissa, what started out not as love, but as a mutual support during my lowest moments, became something real. She offered the loyalty that Vanessa never could. Now we're constructing something genuine. I've come to understand that while betrayal stings, channeling that pain into something transformative is where true strength lies. It's about making sure that the one who deceived you never forgets. 6 months passed without a word from Vanessa. No emails, no letters, just silence. Then, one morning at 3:17 a.m., I received a long, rambling text from her filled with half-hearted apologies and self-pity. But one sentence struck me deeply. "I didn't know how good I had it until I lost you." I stared at that message not out of any emotion, but because it confirmed what I had long suspected. She never truly loved me. She loved the stability, the comfort, and the identity that came with being with a man who built a life around her. When she assumed I'd always be there, she risked everything and lost. I chose not to reply. My silence said more than any words could. Vanessa later moved in with Drew for a while, only to be betrayed by him when he cheated on her with a younger woman. Classic. Now she works as a receptionist, lives in a cramped studio, And her name isn't even on any lease. Even her attempt to reconnect with Melissa failed, as Melissa promptly blocked her. I'm not perfect. I still have nights when silence creeps in and memories flicker at the edge of my calm. But I'm no longer bitter. Overcoming betrayal hasn't broken me. It has refined me. I am now sharper, smarter, stronger, and finally free. Cisco Delaney and his wife Marge were invited to a fancy party at the home of financier Michael Blaine. Cisco had to go because he was being honored for his work at GGT Inc. The company was founded by Blaine's late father and was now run by Blaine. Ronald Mick. Blaine founded the company to invest some of the money he made making kitchen gadgets. The plan was to fund promising startup small businesses. That's exactly what GGT did while it was run by Mick. The company made a small profit and put it to good use. When Mick took over the company, GGT became something else. Instead of helping small startups, it bought small companies and essentially liquidated them by selling off assets. The byproduct of this business was often the destruction of society. Cisco's job was to identify such small businesses. He was good at it, but it was eating away at his soul. He intended to accept his award, along with a cash bonus, and quit the next business day. Cisco was 46 and Marge was 44. He was just under 6 feet but slender. He had short, graying, thinning brown hair and blue eyes. He was in good physical shape thanks to the company gym and his hobby of trail running. He looked his age, if not older. However, there was a lot more strength in him than usual. Marge was a pretty brunette with a good, though somewhat voluptuous figure. They had met in college, married upon graduation, and raised 2 boys who were now at university. Marge worked as an interior designer for a local firm. She made a good living, and the couple was quite well off. While Cisco watched the scene, Michael Blaine was talking to Marge. Blaine was 34 years old and stunningly handsome. He had done triathlons in his youth and now climbed rocks, among other active hobbies. One of them was fencing. He was over 6 feet tall, muscular, with a mop of dark hair. He and Marge seemed to get along just fine. Cisco watched them warily. He wasn't happily married, and hadn't been for 5 years or more. Marge had been a wonderful wife for many years, but as the boys grew older, she became more and more immersed in herself. Besides, she was constantly worried about how she looked, for her weight had gotten a little more than it used to. Cisco reassured her about that. He actually liked her body the way it was. Marge, on the other hand, didn't like it. All of her friends were slimmer and trimmer than she was. Marge, however, was prettier than all of them. In addition, Marge had become somewhat of a social snob. Ever since Cisco was promoted to GGT, she began to hold herself with dignity. Cisco had been born into poverty and remembered it. He didn't like Marge's swagger. He had spoken up about it more than once, but to no avail. The only thing Cisco appreciated about Marge was marital sex. Both she and he were good at sex, inventive and intense, and sometimes relaxed and playful. Outside of bed, Cisco had fallen out of love with her. His impending retirement was in part an attempt to get the marriage back on track. He was not optimistic about his prospects. Nevertheless, he had to try. After all, things had been good for so long. During their conversation, Michael Blaine had moved closer to Marge. It was a light touch on his part. Cisco had never liked Blaine. He was unmarried and heard as a devoted skirt hunter. Now it seemed he was stalking Marge. Watching the attempted seduction, Cisco found that he wasn't just annoyed. He felt his fists clenching. However, the tete-a-tete was interrupted by a young man who approached Blaine and spoke. Blaine patted Marge on the shoulder and headed toward a small platform in the corner of the room. A sound system stood there. Blaine turned on the microphone and announced that it was time for the awards presentation, his word. He gave a short speech, presenting the staff with 3 awards. He then singled out Cisco and spoke briefly about how much he had done for the company during his tenure as vice president of acquisitions. Cisco received a plaque and a check in an envelope. Applause broke out. Cisco gave a short speech. "I want to thank Mr. Blaine for this recognition of my work. I want to thank my wife Marge for her patience. It has been an honor to work for this company for the past 25 years. Applause broke out, and a buffet was set up for everyone. Cisco approached Marge and escorted her to the buffet and then to a table near the entrance that had signs with their names on it. Marge said, "You must be having a wonderful day, kiddo." Cisco nodded. "Yes." "How did your conversation with Mr. Blaine go?" "Oh, Michael is charming, don't you think?" "Not really. You seem to be the one he's interested in." Marge averted her gaze, at which point the man himself approached her. Blaine sat down next to Marge and said, "Cisco, I want to say again what a wonderful job you've done." While Cisco was thanking Blaine, dance music started playing. Blaine said, "Marge, would you like to dance?" Now Cisco was more than annoyed, but he wanted to see how Marge would react. She took Blaine's hand and led him to the dance floor. Cisco stood up and asked one of the office staff, Gloria Sanchez, to dance. Gloria was an administrative assistant, pretty and single. She accepted, and it turned out she was a very good dancer. When the number was over, Cisco thanked her and sat back down at the table, but Blaine and Marge kept dancing. 2 more numbers. They made no secret of their mutual attraction. Then the music stopped, and they walked over to the brick fireplace where a light was burning. Blaine put his arm around Marge. They talked, face to face, close, almost kissing. People began to look at Cisco and the two at the fireplace. Cisco flared up with anger. It was one thing for Blaine to try to woo Marge, but it was quite another to do it openly at a reception where her husband was receiving an award. Cisco decided that Blaine was going out of his way to disrespect his best employee. He didn't understand why this was happening, but he didn't need to understand it. Blaine wasn't a very smart man. When he took over the business, his idea was to do acquisitions, but he didn't have the capabilities to accomplish that. Cisco, on the other hand, did have such opportunities. At GGT, the employees and staff knew who was responsible for the big profits of the last 6 years. Those profits came with big bonuses. Cisco was a favorite of the staff and lower management. Blaine couldn't stand him. He was always rich, handsome, and well-liked. He was the best in his social group. Now Cisco had surpassed him in the one area where he expected to make a name for himself. Blaine hadn't planned to seduce Marge at this event, but he could see that Marge was willing to be seduced, and with his help. When he got the chance, he couldn't resist. He would put Cisco in his place. That was the end of his thinking. He didn't think about what might happen to, say, his company without Cisco. He didn't think about how Cisco might react badly. Maybe quit his job. Might do something even more extreme. Cisco watched with growing anger as Marge apparently succumbed to Blaine's entreaties. The anger was causing him a real physical pain in his stomach. But then he cooled down. That was a bad sign. When he got cold, bad things happened. The cold allowed him to use his calculating brain without emotional interference. Emotions could set the table and determine the target. But when the cold subsided, the steps needed to accomplish the goal became clear. If someone became a target, big trouble awaited them. Blaine was in serious trouble as soon as Cisco got cold. Cisco stood up and slowly made his way towards the couple who were now kissing by the fireplace. When they were about 10 feet away, he said, "Are you two crazy?" Blaine turned to him. He smiled. Marge said, "Cisco, I need a pass for tonight. Maybe for the weekend." Cisco said, "No." Blaine spoke up. "No choice, Delaney. She's on her own. She doesn't belong to you." Cisco turned to Marge and raised an eyebrow. Marge said, "I'm going on a date with Michael tonight, Cisco." Cisco started laughing. Marge and Blaine were stunned into silence. Cisco said, "Mikey, what do you need that old hag for? She's way past her prime. I was going to put her on duty next week. You did me a favor by publicly providing the perfect ground for a divorce." shouted Marge. Liar! A crowd of GGT employees gathered. Cisco turned to her. I'm not lying, and anyway, what in God's name do you see in that stupid, lame asshole who's never worked a day in his life? God, you're such a stupid asshole. Blaine was already blushing. He said, It's time for you to leave, Delaney, before I have to deal with you. Cisco laughed again, right in Blaine's face. What would you do, oaf? Anyway, I don't see why you're attracted to that hag. She's almost old enough to be your mother. Maybe that's the whole point. She's supposed to remind you of your mother. And you're just a bastard. The crowd broke into nervous laughter. Cisco realized what Blaine was about to do. Sure enough, he started slapping, keeping his right hand at the ready. Cisco simply staggered towards the slap, stepping away from it to soften the force of the blow. However, when the slap hit his cheek, there was a loud sound, and a split second later, another sound was heard. As a result of Blaine's blow, his face was right in front of Cisco. Cisco smashed Blaine's nose with the heel of his right hand, causing Blaine to recoil. Blaine squealed like a small child. Cisco watched Blaine closely. Blaine was leaning against the brick fireplace, and Cisco saw that Blaine had leaned a poker against the fireplace. Cisco remained calm, figuring out the best way to wound Blaine. When Blaine grabbed the poker, Cisco moved a little closer. Blaine swung the poker at Cisco. The audience heard a low sound as the weapon arced toward Cisco's head, but it never reached her. Cisco quickly moved inside the arc of the poker. Blaine's hand struck Cisco's shoulder, and the poker flew out of his hand. By this point, both of Cisco's hands were on Blaine's face. Cisco drove his hands back and slammed Blaine's skull against the edge of the brick fireplace. Blaine's skull cracked like an egg that hit the edge of a frying pan too hard. Dirty. Very dirty. Cisco dropped Blaine and stepped back. The guards were already around, and Cisco was pushed away from Blaine. The whole incident, from the slap to the cracking of the egg, had taken less than a minute. There were now 2 guards looming over Blaine. Cisco glanced at them, but as he felt the blow, he realized Blaine was gone. He started looking for Marge. Later, watching the videotape of the incident at the fireplace, he saw that Marge had attacked him from behind after he had broken Blaine's nose. Cisco didn't even feel her ineffective closed fist punch. He also saw her hit him with a flying poker. Stepping away from the fireplace, Cisco saw Marge sitting in a chair, bleeding. 2 women were wiping the blood from her face. At that moment, Cisco didn't know what caused the blood, but Cisco walked past her. He saw that she was in no danger, but she was sobbing, hard. Cisco approached the head of security, who was trying to get people into the mess hall away from the scene. He told him he would wait for the police at the entrance. The man nodded. Cisco waited on a concrete bench by the front door. He watched as the police arrived and ran inside. Then an ambulance showed up. More police. He watched as Marge was carried out to the ambulance, which drove off with flashers but no siren. He wondered what had gotten into her, what she had done. It was so astonishing. He couldn't understand it, nor could he understand Blaine, whose actions would cause his company to collapse because Cisco would resign. None of it made sense to him. Eventually, a plainclothes policeman approached Cisco. Mr. Delaney, I'm Detective Barnes. May I speak with you for a moment? Sure. I've been expecting you. I assume Blaine is dead? Yes. Very dead. At that moment, several guys carried the body bag out and loaded it into the van. Cisco and Barnes watched in silence. Barnes said, Let's go inside. I have a room. They went inside and found themselves in a small room next to the dining room. Another detective was located there. She introduced herself as Mary Stewart. She was a large woman, white-skinned, with short blonde hair in her 30s. She said, This is an initial interview, and I'll be recording it if you don't mind. Okay. Barnes said, I'm asking you to tell us in your own words what happened. Cisco said, I was watching Blaine try to seduce my wife. Eventually, I went over and intervened. Marge said she was going to sleep with Blaine. I wasn't happy about it, more because of the venue. It seemed like they were purposely trying to, I don't know, mess with me. And you got mad? Yeah. I started taunting them back. I wasn't going to stand there and just badmouth Blaine, so I opened fire on them, laughed at them, and insulted them. Have you watched the video yet? Yeah. There's a whole house system there, and about 10 people were filming everything on their phones. So, you know the guy hit me. In fact, my face is swollen. It is. Mary, maybe we can take some pictures. Stewart used her phone to take some pictures of Cisco. Barnes said, "So you hit him?" Yeah. His face was right there. So I punched him. Then he came at me with a poker. He could have killed me. I heard it go flying through the air. And I hit him against the fireplace. It flew off and I threw it and backed away. For real, I mean, he wasn't going to get up. No. I told the guard I'd wait outside. Then you came in. Barnes said, "You didn't ask about your wife." That's right. Cisco said nothing more. Stewart asked, "Aren't you at least a little worried?" You know, maybe later. Right now, not so much. She screwed up and badly. I think there's no turning back. How did she get hurt? She was hit with a poker. Stewart grimaced. Are you going to divorce her? It was Barnes. Probably. I haven't been happily married for a long time, said Barnes. Well, Mr. Delaney, we've reviewed the videotape, and it's pretty clear that Mr. Blaine attacked you, and you responded. Your response was proportionate to his attack. Therefore, we will not detain you at this time. The case will be referred to the Commonwealth's attorney, and she will decide whether to prosecute. However, I don't consider that a real possibility right now, unless something else comes up. Okay. I can leave now? Yes, Stewart said. Your wife has been taken to the local hospital. I don't know if they'll admit her. I doubt it. Okay. Thanks for the information. Cisco walked out the door and headed for his car. He sat in the driver's seat, contemplating what to do. He then drove to the hospital located 3 miles from his home. He inquired about Marge's whereabouts and went to the emergency room. Marge was in one of the offices. Cisco stepped over the curtain and looked at her. She had a bandage on her head. Marge seemed to recoil from him. She was whimpering. Cisco said, "Calm down, Marge. I'm not here to rush you. What do they say about your head?" Marge replied in a trembling voice, "You killed Michael. Killed him." Yes, so. He swung a poker at me and I did what I did. For him, really. For him and for you. He didn't deserve to die, Cisco. I wasn't trying to kill him. I just wanted to quiet him down. Calm him down for good. Yeah, didn't see what you did. I was hit. But I saw you when you said mean things. You weren't even angry. You were calm. I felt I had to stop the stupidity. I was trying to keep you from completely ruining our marriage, which I believe you've already done. I mean shit. A nurse came in. She said, "Mrs. Delaney, you can be released. Is this your husband?" Yes. The nurse decided that Cisco had taken Marge home. Cisco decided that he would take her home for now. Marge's dress was stained with blood. Cisco threw it in the bio-waste container. He wrapped her in a hospital gown and his coat. He drove her home. There was no talking on the way. Marge was crying, but not sobbing. Cisco put her to bed in their room. When she fell asleep, he went to the guest room. It took him quite a while to fall asleep. He was shivering, but it wasn't cold. He got up and walked around the room, but it didn't help. He knew he was suffering from some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder or shock. Now that he no longer needed to be a competent person, he passed out. Eventually, he fell asleep. He locked the door in case Marge went crazy again. When he woke up, she was already asleep. He made coffee and ate a muffin. Then he heard her stirring. It was Sunday. Cisco had a lot to think about his marriage, About his job. Would he go through with quitting? What about Marge? Would he be able to do it? She came downstairs in her bathrobe and slippers. She looked awful. He thought he probably looked bad himself, even though he had showered and dressed. He said, "What a couple we have here, a libertine and a murderer." Marge gasped. She stepped back. She said, "I'm not promiscuous or, well, last night you were willing to go and sleep with my boss, and you had no problem letting everyone I work with know about it. They still know it now. They know it about you. More importantly, I know it about you." She replied, "I don't have an explanation for that. I haven't even tried to find one. Not yet." "Marge, we haven't been right for some time, I'm sure you know that. What we had was sex. But lately that's all we've had." "So what? That doesn't explain why Cisco, I really regret what I did. I know we've drifted apart, but I don't know why exactly, or why I acted like a jerk last night. I don't know what to do. I used to love you. Loved you very much. And now? Now I can't feel you. Before you became a lecher, I was probably going to file for divorce. I never knew. I told you about your attitude, like you were better than everyone else. We solved our problems by going to bed and having sex." "Great sex, though." She smiled at him. "Yeah. I guess it won't be enough now. We can try, even though I'm a murderer. I killed your boyfriend." "Oh, Cisco, especially after that." She turned and, throwing off her robe, walked away. There was nothing under it. Cisco followed her upstairs. As she walked up, she looked absolutely gorgeous. Her ass was gorgeous, even if she thought it was too big. It didn't seem that way to him. By the time she reached the bedroom door, Cisco was already naked. Reaching the bed, she turned to face him. He pulled her to him and grabbed her ass with both hands. Marge was ecstatic. The hands that had killed yesterday were on her today. There was something primal about it for her, and for him too. Cisco looked around. He said, "Despite what happened on Saturday, business must go on. If anyone feels uncomfortable, please speak up." Gloria Sanchez raised her hand. She said, "Boss, we all saw him trying to kill you. Among other things, we all know who runs this place. We're embarrassed by the thought of you leaving. You know, because you killed the owner." Cisco said, "I intend to at least see how things go. I don't own the business. Well, except for 10%. Michael has a sister. I haven't seen her in a long time, but maybe she'll inherit from him." After that, things went back to normal. Cisco knew Michael's mother had died of cancer 2 years ago. As he'd told the team, he was left with a younger sister, Isabella, a.k.a. Izzy, a.k.a. Dizzy Izzy. She was 32 years old. Cisco had known her for years, as a child, a teenager, a student, and just an adorable blonde. She had become blonde after she graduated from high school, or maybe 10 years before that. Cisco hadn't seen her in most of those years, except at his parents' funeral. He'd always liked her when she was younger. He spent some time trying to find her and finally succeeded. He had a cell phone number and an address in San Francisco. He pondered whether to call and whether she even knew about Michael's death and the circumstances. He sent her a text message from his cell phone. It was only 6 in the morning on the West Coast. He left a message for her to call him. It was an emergency. 2 hours later, she called. "Cisco?" "Yes, Izzy." "Did you hear about Michael?" "Yes. The police called. They had a local officer come by." "What happened?" "Izzy, he and I had a fight about Marge. He tried to hit me with a fireplace poker. Yeah, well, I hit his head on the bricks, and he died. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to be so final." "Why did you two fight over Marge?" "He openly seduced her at an awards party. They were going to leave together. But he slapped me, and everything went back to normal." "Were you arrested?" "Number self-defense." "Ah, good. That call must have been hard on you." Now her tears were coming out. "Yes. Yes, it was. I'm sorry he's dead, Izzy. He's your family. Oh, Cisco, he wasn't a good man. We both know that. When I was growing up, I tried to stay as far away from him as possible, but I feel bad about it. Not as bad as... Don't beat yourself up, Izzy. I have to go back there. He needs to be buried. We have a family plot. If you want, I can have Gloria Sanchez take care of the arrangements. I can give you her number, but I don't think I should do that under the circumstances. Cisco began to shake again. His voice trembled. He realized that Michael's murder had not yet come back to haunt him. Izzy said, "That would be good. Cisco, please take care of yourself. How are you and Marge doing?" "So far, so good. I haven't made any decisions yet, you know." "Cisco, I remember how close you two were when I was young." "Yes. Not so much now, but still." She said, "I'll call Gloria. I'll see you when I get back." "Okay. I look forward to seeing you, Izzy." The funeral was scheduled for a week later on Monday afternoon. After the autopsy, Michael's body was taken outside and soon cremated. Izzy arrived Wednesday morning. She worked as an editor at a publishing house and could do it remotely. Gloria met her at the airport. She was staying at the Hilton Hotel nearby. Cisco asked Izzy if she wanted to come to the office on Thursday to see what she would own. She agreed. At 10 o'clock in the morning, she arrived. Cisco was struck again by how beautiful Izzy was. Tall, slender, blonde, with a dazzling smile. He showed her around, introduced her to the staff. There were many expressions of sympathy. Then they talked one-on-one in his office. Cisco told her about the work he was doing and how it was different from what he had started doing at the company under her father. He also told her that prior to the incident at the fireplace, he had intended to quit. He wasn't comfortable with what the company was doing. Izzy looked at him thoughtfully as he spoke. When he finished, she asked, "How many total deals are in the works right now?" 3 deals. 2 are partial remodeling followed by a sale. 1 is demolition, complete demolition. Everton, Pennsylvania. Izzy said, "I talked to a lawyer yesterday. I'm the sole heir under his will, not to charity or anyone else, so I guess I'm your boss. I hope our relationship is better than it was with Michael." "Oh, yeah." "I'm moving into Michael's apartment this week. I'll be able to do my work from here." In Frisco, Cisco, I just ended a long-term relationship." "Sorry to hear that. Are you planning on moving here?" "Probably. Ronnie and I had an apartment. He can stay if I leave." "So you could move into Michael's office if you wanted to." She did want to. Meanwhile, on the home front, Marge and Cisco had calmed down a bit after the intense animalistic sex they had engaged in for 2 days after the incident. Cisco was relieved, because it seemed to him that if this continued, they were likely to die in a fire. He and Marge went to Michael's memorial service. It was awkward. When people were asked to speak, no one had anything to say. Then Cisco stood up and praised Michael for his business decisions that had made many of them rich. Izzy told a story from their childhood. It was one of the few that didn't reflect badly on Michael. Izzy cried a little. Cisco did too. It surprised him. That was the end of it. As he left, Cisco thought he had hoped for something more. After the wake, Marge was worried about Izzy. Izzy was so damn beautiful and slender. Marge became jealous almost immediately because she realized that Izzy and Cisco would be working closely together. Izzy picked up on Marge's discomfort. She didn't say or do anything to make Marge worry even more. But Izzy admitted to herself that she really liked Cisco. She had always been drawn to him as a child. He was so sexy and yet so sweet to her. She knew that Cisco and Marge had probably broken up because of Marge's behavior at the party, but she saw no signs of it when she saw them together. They never seemed to pull away from each other. Maybe they clung to each other? She decided to hang on. In the meantime, she had plans for the company. Izzy didn't want to be the agent of societal destruction that GGT had been under Michael. That's exactly what she'd told Cisco. She wanted to get back to lending to startups. Cisco didn't really want that. He explained to her that most of the firms they bought and liquidated failed whether GGT bought, someone else bought, or no one bought. GGT had simply accelerated the process. Izzy asked, "And if they fail, is it inevitable?" "Most of the time. Not all the time. But when we shut them down, we do it because we get more money that way." "Then let's change things up a bit. Let's see if we can save them or just close them." "That would be less money." "I have my money from my dad and mom. I have Michael's money and an apartment." "But less money for the employees. They get bonuses." "We can relax the terms, and we'll have a general management staff meeting." That's what they did. Cisco and Izzy worked closely on the changes. The deals they were involved in were restorative, and they kept up with the times. They concluded that the building was beyond rehabilitation. They did the liquidation and paid the employees termination bonuses. It was the best they could do, and they still made a good amount of money on the liquidation. Izzy decided to look for businesses that could go either way and pursue a rescue of the concern. This required a lot more travel from the Cisco team. It also required hiring people who could go to, say, Indiana and try to turn the tide. Cisco and Izzy became very close. In the year since Izzy took over the company, Marge had become increasingly worried. She brought it up with Cisco. He replied, "I haven't done anything to her, Margie." Marge replied, "She's so slender and beautiful, Cisco." "I know you. You'd like to sleep with her until you pass out." Cisco nodded. "But I didn't. I feel threatened." "How many times do I have to tell you that I really like your body? You should know that since we've been messing around so much. You know. She sighed. Indeed, she did know, but she couldn't help but see Izzy as a threat. Cisco had told Izzy that one afternoon. Izzy smiled at him. She said, "I didn't do anything to get to you, Cisco." "I know. It's bad for my ego." Izzy smiled. "I think I might have gotten to you. How would you like being under me?" Cisco paid attention to the wording. Not like, but would like. He leaned back and closed his eyes. He imagined being under her. He found it hard to speak. He opened his eyes. Izzy was looking at him expectantly. He said, "Izzy, don't tease me. I'm having a hard enough time as it is." "How hard, Cisco?" Now it was an open attempt on her part. "Jesus, Izzy, please." His voice was pleading. Izzy smiled at him again. "Okay, big boy. I'll tell you what. Invite me to dinner on Saturday. We'll discuss it." Cisco was wary. He wondered what she meant, but his current situation was such that he had to agree. He didn't believe he could work with this woman for long without something breaking. Since the incident at the fireplace, their relationship with Marge had progressed a long way. He no longer felt that she was largely absent from the marriage, and neither had he himself. Their sex life was as wonderful as ever. But Izzy, damn it. Marge had made lasagna. Marge was so well dressed, she looked like $1 million. Izzy showed up. Izzy looked like $1 billion. She was wearing a blue dress with a loose skirt and a tight top. No sleeves. She had beautiful arms. She had heels, but not too high. She was tall enough as it was. Marge was at a loss. Cisco would be at a loss too, but he knew he would have to choose between the two women. He gave Izzy a brief hug and greeted her. Izzy then walked over to Marge and hugged her much tighter. There were no air kisses. Izzy said, "Marge, you look ravishing." Marge glowed. She said, "Izzy, I can't compare to you." Izzy looked her right in the face and said, "Yes, you can, Marge. Candle?" Cisco realized what could happen. He'd seen some hints of it at work. He decided he wouldn't do anything to stop it if it happened. And why would he? Marge poured Izzy some red wine, and they all sat around telling stories about how Izzy was younger. Then they ate lasagna and salad. They each ate a little. They moved into the living room. Marge sat on the couch, Izzy next to her. Cisco sat in the chair next to her. Izzy said, "That was a wonderful dinner, Marge." Marge replied, "Thank you. I'm having tiramisu for dessert." Izzy put her arm around Marge's shoulders. She said, "I have another idea what to eat next." Izzy turned Marge's face toward her. She kissed Marge right on the lips. Marge kissed her back. Cisco watched this, not surprised in the least. It was so sexy. The two of them collapsed on the bed. Marge was silent, but soon Izzy laughed with delight. She said, "It was nice eating with you, Marge." He rolled from her to Izzy's other side. After a few minutes, breathing heavily, Izzy asked, "So, tiramisu?" Cisco rolled off the bed. He said, "Stay here. I'll get it right away." He found the dessert in the refrigerator, put 3 servings on a tray of spoons, and went back upstairs. He found Izzy and Marge in each other's arms, kissing. Izzy saw the dessert and interrupted them. All 3 of them sat and ate. They were laughing. Marge said, "Well, Cisco, I think Izzy has found a solution to my concerns about you two." Cisco said, "You know, you two are both so beautiful and sexy." Izzy replied, "We know. I wonder how long you two will last." The women laughed. Cisco didn't notice the humor. Izzy moved in with them about 2 months later. She was renting an apartment for a new employee. About 3 months later, Izzy sat down to dinner with Marge and Cisco and said, "I'm pregnant." Cisco was shocked, but Marge laughed and said, "Congratulations." Izzy turned to Cisco. "I should have told you, Cisco, but I wanted it so badly. Marge knew, didn't you?" "Yes, no pills in the bathroom, and you know, that makes sense." A short time later, Izzy gave birth to a 7-pound boy, Stephen, after Marge's father. Stephen weighs exactly 7 pounds. Cisco wanted to name him Pancho, but the women quickly declined. Cisco named him Pancho anyway. 2 years later, daughter Abby was born. As for the big bed, Marge and Cisco never lost their spirits. Izzy only added to their strength, and quite a bit of it. Cisco gradually forgot the incident at the fireplace. Mostly. He kept thinking that if he hadn't killed Michael, he wouldn't have 2 kids and a new family. Funny how things worked out. The scandal that ruined my life. My husband had only one grand showdown for me between 3 months when I began going out with my boss and brought our life to an end in the most worst way possible. I never thought that this would be the way we would part. 3 months earlier, my entire life had fallen apart. My secret relationship with my boss, Greg, had been an office rumor. Shocking. Nobody could have prepared me for the fire of seeing Jason, my husband, discover what I'd done. Jason was the epitome of niceness, of being supportive, of being trustworthy, and I'd destroyed it all to bits in the worst possible manner. How it all began. I was autopilot myself during this time. I knew I was doing something that was wrong, but I justified what I was doing. I told myself I needed the attention, the excitement that Greg introduced into my life. Jason and I were married for 6 years. The affair was at first torrid, but just seemed to die down in the end. Jason was so enthralled in work, and I felt completely ignored most of the time. I yearned for the type of attention and approval that Greg gave so eagerly. The forbidden attraction. It began as innocently as possible, late nights in the office and good-natured kidding with the break room gang. Greg was charming, confident, and engaged, something Jason had ceased to provide me. He heard my gripes, laughed at my jokes, and made me feel understood. His enthusiasm was contagious, a blast of fresh air in a hot room. Before I realized, our discussion had turned from work to personal problems. A problem had led to another, and we had overstepped every boundary before I realized what was happening. The affair that I couldn't resist. The physical part of our affair was unfamiliar to me. Greg was good-looking and wanted me, a sentiment I hadn't experienced in a long time with Jason. But whatever it was, however thrilling, wasn't worth it. I was cheating on my husband, the man who had waited for me throughout my life, the man who loved me for no matter. Deep within my heart, I knew that what I was doing was terrible. But then I convinced myself it was just little innocent affair, something nothing. But I couldn't deny the fact. I was in a trap of my own creation, and it was only a matter of time before everything collapsed. The day. Everything collapsed. That Monday arrived. Jason had called in sick at work, but I was due to meet Greg. We made it a point to meet at a nearby hotel. I never knew what was going to happen next. Standing with Greg in the hotel suite, I saw the door burst open and heard the commotion reverberate throughout the room. My stomach dropped to the floor. Jason's voice, shaking, angry, and completely stunned, ran around the room. "What in tarnation is going on, Karen?" he bellowed. I was firm. Greg stood in front of me with his white shock face agape in seeming dumbfoundedness as to what to do. Jason stood in the doorway, his usually tranquil face twisted in naked rage. His face was reddish and the eyes overflowed with betrayal. "Jason," I stuttered, barely able to speak in sentences. "How do I tell you this? How do I tell you that we dismantled the life we built here?" The moment that broke us. "Really doing it?" he'd asked, husking out words on the words. "Is it what you were doing behind my back? Getting into bed with him? With my boss?" I remained stationary, but Greg brushed past me and ran out of the room in silence. I was immobile. I stood there and observed as the man for whom I had put everything at risk vanished from sight, and I was left to deal with the destruction that I had left in my wake. Jason's eyes were no longer warm anymore. He looked at me like a stranger. His voice, cold, but with an overlay of pain, cut the silence. "I don't even know you anymore," he told me. "How could you do this to me, Karen? After everything we've been through?" I couldn't respond. I had nothing to say I was sorry for, no words to take back what had been done. I had ruined everything. I had betrayed Jason in the most vile manner, and we could never go back from that which had already occurred. The consequences of my treachery. Jason departed that evening. I remained sitting in the hotel room for hours, burdened by the guilt of what had been accomplished. My behavior crushed me. This was not only the trust that had been betrayed. It was also the annihilation of the life that we had built. And now it was finished. We didn't say a lot of words to one another during the weeks. I tried to apologize to him, but he wouldn't let me. He became a roommate to one of his buddies and left behind the consequences of his actions. The affair hadn't destroyed our marriage. Just it started to unravel throughout my life. At the office, there was gossip, like wildfire. I was the office gossip, the woman who'd allowed personal mistakes derailed her career. The viciousness didn't stop, but all that was nothing compared to the pain of losing Jason. 3 months later. The final blow. 3 months were gone and his apology was no closer. Sometimes we texted each other or even communicated through emails, but his message would be a riddle and his ire continued. My wounds created through me still festering. One evening he called and asked me to meet him. My heart leaped in hopes of this being the first step to curing the wounds created by me. We sat in a small, silent cafe. As soon as I saw him, I knew he was different. He was drained, spent of all energy from the weight of everything that had transpired. I wanted to touch him, hold him, comfort him, but I knew that wasn't why he was there. He needed answers. He needed closure, the painful truth. "You've had long enough, Karen," he said to her cold and inexorably. "I've waited patiently, but I have no space for playing games like this anymore. The trust has been broken. You've shattered me, and I don't even know if I can make the pieces fit together again." His words cut me into pieces. I was trembling as I spoke. I know I hurt you, Jason. I cannot reverse the hands of time. I was lost, and I committed the biggest mistake of my life. I never meant to hurt you. He stared at me, his face contorted in anger and pain. You hurt me the instant that you lied, he detailed. The instant that you chose to lie to me with him. It was so thick between us, the tension had been so horrid, that the cafe would almost have been breathable. Then, out of nowhere, Jason stood up and slapped me. The shocking revenge that ended it all. The slap resounded in the room, and I was immobile, standing there. My cheek burned and my eyes filled with tears. I glared at him, hoping to see something of regret, but there was nothing. His face was twisted in pain, but he did not regret it. I will never forgive you. He laughed, his own throat full of tears. And I do not even think that I shall waste my time on trying to. There, he simply spun around and out of my world, leaving me standing there. I was paralyzed in fear of being guilty. The final lesson, that was the worst. The physical pain was short-lived, but the psychological damage was enormous. Jason had reached rock bottom. He could no longer pretend or wish that life would go back to normalcy as before. By this time, I thought our marriage was finished. Life continued, but not as I had hoped. Jason finally ended up with someone else, and I tried to rebuild the tatters of my life. The affair had cost me dearly: marriage, dignity, and career. It taught me the hard lesson that there were errors for which one could not reverse the consequences. I carry the burden of my actions with me every day. Betrayal leaves deep scars, and sometimes even the sincerest of apologies cannot mend the wound.